Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, J.A. Jance, a prolific best-selling author who resides part of the year right here in our own Puget Sound. She has a new J.P. Beaumont novel launching this week, which I did get a chance to read ahead of time, lucky me, and it is a thrilling read, and it's so relevant and fascinating that it's destined to be on that bestsellers list as well. J.A. Jance has a couple of book events this month, so keep that in mind as you may want to meet and chat about aspects of this book and her writing. J.A. Jance, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am also very happy that we have this new installment, a new book in the life of J.P. Beaumont, Den of Iniquity. What a journey. What a read. So compelling. You have packed so much into what is essentially about a month of time in the book, but we are all over the place. And as I read and was really embracing the story, I couldn't help but also stand back and wonder at how you put all this together and were weaving all these pieces that fit together. You are genius in doing this.
Thank you. I'll try not to get a swelled head. Have you ever seen the play Sunday in the Park with George?
Yes.
He was a pointillist, and there's one song that says, bit by bit, putting it together, piece by piece. And he was talking about painting, but writing a murder mystery is a lot like that, too. You put pieces together as you go along, and I really enjoy that part of it. I was doing an interview, and they asked me what tricks do I use to keep the suspense going. Well, I don't use tricks. I try to just tell the story and let the story and the characters carry me along with them. And sometimes they take me into places I don't expect.
And did that happen with this book as well?
That happened with this book as well, yes. This book was really fun to write. For one thing, when Beau has aged as I have aged, but when Beau and I started our journey together in 1983, so he and I have been together as author and character for more than 41 years, and I made the decision early on that he was going to age along with me, so I gave him my birthday, so we're the same, we're the same age.
Great.
Beau used to be the same way I was about exercise, and the only exercise he got was jumping to conclusions. So when I started getting my 10,000 steps a day, he started thinking about walking, and then he got dogs, and so now he walks. And so that book opens with him out on a walk with his dogs and his neighbor. But when he comes back, and there's a car in his yard that he doesn't exactly recognize, and his grandson steps out and says, by the way, his 18-year-old grandson, Kyle, says, by the way, my parents are getting a divorce. My dad has moved his pregnant girlfriend into the house, and can I come live with you and Grandma?
Yes. How is that for hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, part of what was so fun in this book was watching Beau and Mel try to bridge this chasm between decades-long chasm. It's not just a generation gap. It's a lot bigger than that. And the part about kids these days having no idea how to drive a stick shift is hilarious.
Yes.
And the movies that Kyle likes that Beau thinks he's not going to like and ends up being surprised by, those were all really fun details to put in the background of this book. But this isn't just a family saga. There is an important story that's actually front and center. And that's something we read about in the newspaper every day here in Seattle, the fentanyl crisis. one fentanyl overdose death after another, after another, after another. And in this book, we're dealing with a grandmother whose grandson was declared an accidental overdose. And she stands up and says, "No way, Jose. He was off drugs or he wouldn't have been living with me." And she wants Bo to figure out what really happened to him. And that's what leads Bo on this journey where they discover other fentanyl deaths that have been disregarded. And part of what that allowed me to do was go beyond the headlines where, oh, another person died of fentanyl. Oh, well, who cares? Mm-hmm. To see the families coping with the loss of their loved one and the reactions of those various families, the ones who are in denial and say, he was a good boy, he never would have done something like this, and the others say, he was a jerk and he deserved it. But walking with those families in the book is a really important part of it for me as well. And so was unraveling the killer.
And I really appreciated that perspective of looking at something differently, looking at the fentanyl overdoses in this different perspective. And I'm sure that there has been, well, I'm not sure. I can't be sure. But it certainly gives you cause to think, like, how much of this could be something like what was going on in the book, that it really was a retribution, that there was a serial killer on the loose.
Who was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Right. And, you know, the way that you piece those things together, kind of that the awareness comes to Bo, like, oh, that's a great perspective to look at it in this vein. I thought, oh, that's where I say it's genius, the way this unfolded.
Well, I think for me personally, writing this book changed the way I think and feel about the fentanyl deaths that turn up in the news.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, it makes me think that they're not just a statistic. Mm-hmm. They are actual real people with real families and real losses. And that's what Yolanda uncovered in her, Yolanda Aguirre, the forensic economist in this book. She was the one who was going through the numbers, just the raw numbers and names, and getting the backstory. And it was the backstories that pulled Bo into the whole process. By the way, Yolanda Aguirre in this book is named after a girl from Bisbee High School who was in my homeroom. I was Judy Busk, so I was at the far end of the room, and she was Yolanda Aguirre, so she was in the front row, in the row closest to the window. But she was such a spark plug, and she had been a fan for years. And I wrote to her when I wanted to create this character. Yolanda Aguirre immediately popped into my head. Mm. So I wrote her a letter and asked her if she would mind my using her name in this book. And I never heard back from her, and I was really kind of puzzled about that. But I went ahead and named her that anyway. And then a couple months into writing the book, I learned that she had died unexpectedly a couple of months earlier, and that's why I never heard back. So she's a character in this book, and the book is also dedicated to her.
It's so honoring of her. So, as you mentioned, you give her the role of the forensic economist. Is that something that really exists?
No, I made it up, but okay. It should exist.
Yes, it absolutely should. And to give that background, to interview families, to get that story in one regard, yes, it gives them a way to talk about their loved one, but then it shows us really the repercussions, what happens to their surviving family. It's critical.
What happens to kids afterwards?
Yes.
What happens? What happens? What happens? It's like boulders tumbling down a mountainside. And yes, I personally believe that somebody should sit down with every one of those numbered deaths in Seattle and King County and do exactly that kind of study, because it's not just the deaths, but where do those people go for support? What kind of additional costs are entailed on the state because we're not paying attention?
And because these deaths have been ruled suicide, if there was insurance, that certainly goes out the window. But when they're considered...
Wait a minute. That is something that they get wrong on TV all the time. If there is life insurance, if a death occurs within the first 2 years, then there's an investigation and they can simply refund the premiums. If the death happens after those 2 years, then the insurance pays off. But if the killer is the named beneficiary, the money sure as hell isn't going to go to them. But the insurance doesn't go out the window just because it's a suicide, as long as that elimination period, that 2-year elimination period is over.
Aha. Okay.
But,
well, that's
but people who buy insurance and then kill their spouses 3 weeks later, that's stupid.
Yes. Yeah, really not thinking, not very bright. So in these cases, but we're talking in some cases of people who are kind of living on the margins so that, there isn't the extra money potentially to have life insurance. And so how the
Yes.
family members, the kids, how they are coping with it.
Yes, the economic fallout and the emotional fallout to those numbers is astonishing. And I think that's the important part of this book, the part of this book that I've tapped into. The killer is smart, not sympathetic.
Right.
Somebody wrote to me today, and she said, well, I'm looking forward to reading the next Beaumont book, but he sure is hard on cars. How many cars has he destroyed in the course of his career? And I thought, did you already read this book? I didn't say that. But yes, his car does suffer some damage in this book.
A little, yes.
Yes, just a little.
But, as I read that part, I thought, well, his neighbor did get a car restored, his Mustang, so he could consider that, I suppose.
Yeah, it's sort of evened out.
Yeah.
The other part of the story, when I'm writing books, pieces of my own life go into the books without my necessarily noticing it. Bo's grandson, Kyle, is a dead ringer for my grandson, Colt, but I didn't realize it until after I'd written the book and was doing the editing. The case that flummoxes Mel in this book, in her job as chief of police in Bellingham, is the one where the music teacher at the high school has been molesting girls. And I put that into the book, and then a while later, I realized I was writing part of my own history. And at Bisbee High School, I was in the girls' trio. So in that class, there were 3 girls and the 3 singers, and then Judy Adams was the accompanist. And Mr. Payne decided to teach us how to breathe by fondling our breaths. I'm sorry, you do not breathe through your breaths. You breathe through your friggin' lungs. And we talked it over in the girls' trio, and we all said we were going to quit. I did. I went to band. The other girls stayed in girls' trio for the next 3 years. I guess they were still learning how to breathe. But that part of the story is also important because kids in situations like that need to know they should come forward.
Yes, absolutely.
I never ran up the flag on my teacher from then. His son was in school with me, and I don't know if the son was ever aware of what his father was doing. I doubt it, and so I've never mentioned it in public in Bisbee, Arizona. but that's where that part of the story came from. I took a page out of my own book.
And that you did more consciously. As you wrote that, were you aware that, oh, that's, I'm
No.
going to, no,
No,
it
no,
just,
no. You have to realize I figured that out later.
oh my good, wow. Talk about subconscious just at work.
Well, that happens to me, and the creative process and consciousness are interconnected in a magical way that I can't quite unravel. In my Joanna Brady book, my Aunt Alice, several books in, so, well, doesn't Evie mind the way you portray her in the books? And I looked at her like she was nuts and said, Eleanor is like my mother Evie? And I realized, absolutely, she was a dead ringer.
Wow. How amazing. Yes. Magical.
There's a lot about writing that is magical. I'm struggling to keep all the details in this book together because I wrote this book 2 years ago. I've since written the next Ellie Reynolds book, and I'm 70% through writing the next Joanna Brady book. So this is my first interview and first discussion of Den of Iniquity in months, and I've got to sweep all of those newer stories and characters out of my head in order to talk about this one so people will actually believe I wrote this book.
Well, that is a lot of juggling to do, for sure. The stories of 3 different books that are, oh my goodness, that's a miracle that you're able to keep this on track and remembering it and sharing the details with us.
Well, this book was a lot of fun to write, and I'm hoping my readers will get on board with this story and enjoy it. And, of course, another aspect of this story is identity theft.
Oh, yes.
And the fact that people you meet on the web aren't actually who they said they were. And it was really interesting to me to gradually uncover the background of Kyle's father's pregnant girlfriend's backstory.
And did that unfold? You didn't start with this idea, this is where we're going to go with it, but as you wrote, it all came out.
Yes, I do not do outlines. I meet characters as I write, and then I try to find out who they were, where they came from, and what makes them tick. I met outlining in Mrs. Watkins' 6th grade geography class. I hated it then. I hate it to this day. Nothing that has happened in the intervening many decades has changed my mind about outlining. So I follow characters where they go in the story. I do not have any preconceived notions about them when I first meet them.
It's so, honestly, it's so amazing then, to realize that, and then having read the book and how it all evolves and it makes so much sense. And I was just amazed at like how these details came up at one point and then they made sense later, and somebody else takes that information and presents another idea. And honestly, when I say genius, that's truly the way it feels. And yet for you, well, that really is your talent as a writer, as an author, to be able to just let that flow out.
Well, I guess it is. People have told me they don't know how do you do it? And it's like the bumblebee. The bumblebee isn't supposed to fly, but they do anyway because nobody has ever made them believe that they can't. And so I guess I write books in sort of the same fashion.
Well, then we are the happy beneficiaries of that because we get these great stories. I mean, just with the few things that you've mentioned, how Den of Iniquity is just filled with so many contemporary themes. And then it's set just as COVID is about to really rear its ugly head. And I found myself really in those dates thinking, now, where was I at that point? And I remember when Seattle shut down and, I could draw all of that into the story as it was happening. It was just amazing.
Well, my grandson was in middle school when the world shut down. And so I was privy to watching him try to get his virtual classes to actually show up and try to get the technical part of it to work. And of course, that's what Bo and Kyle are dealing with, because this starts in February, just before the shutdown.
And the thing about us in this area, but the story is such that it's relatable. I trust relatable, but also informative and entertaining for anyone everywhere. But for those of us who live in this area, it's great to think about the landmarks and how you mentioned this is the way it was, but it's not, 30 years or so ago when Bo was working downtown, that's not where the police station was, and those sorts of things. It's, the way that you drop those in is, again, really delightful.
Well, the first Beaumont books were done in the early 80s when there was no APHIS, no CODIS, DNA didn't work. There were only payphones. Somebody wrote to me once and said, why is Bo always looking for a payphone and a quarter? And why doesn't he just use his cell? And I wrote back and said, look at the publication date. because the first cell phones didn't go on sale until 1986.
And then they were, generations away from what is today.
Yes. We're a long way from the Motorola brick phone to the one I wear in my bra.
Yes. That was, you need a cart to pull it, practically.
Well, in actual fact, my husband, Bill Schell, was working for Motorola in 1968, and they brought him a piece of balsa wood, brick-shaped, and said, this is going to be the first cell phone, build the radio to go inside this shape. And he did. He and his team did.
Really? Well, that must have been fascinating.
Well, he's a pretty smart guy.
And what year again was that? 68?
He was working for Motorola in Chicago in 1968. He was part of the Advanced Science Group.
So what interesting early beginnings of what we take so for granted right now. Everybody's got that right in their hands, right, all the time.
Yes, times have changed, and I think it's fun to have Bo's changing viewpoints. He was dragged kicking and screaming into the computer age, and now he'd be lost without his cell phone and his iPad. How would he work his crosswords?
And he has to get those crosswords done, right? Even if he gets backed up and with too much work, he goes back to the crosswords.
Well, that's what he does for fun.
The other thing is cooking. They're not so great on cooking, Bo and Mel.
They're not. And that
is that a revelation for yourself as well?
Well, because of my husband's health situation, I've had to learn to cook in the last 5 years, and I'm getting better at it. But her chicken curry, Mel's chicken curry, is another page out of my own book. My one and done batch of chicken curry was utterly inedible. Fun putting those little details in.
And, after the fact, it makes so much sense, to add that in there, because it's great as a description and what it meant for Kyle and for Bo, how they felt about it, but they were very diplomatic. But knowing this now, that was one of your experiences, makes it just fun.
Well, that's what makes writing the books fun for me, too, because I can drop little pieces of my life into the story. And I think it gives the story flavor.
Yes, it
gives
does.
It a sense of reality, that these are normal people living normal lives, but yet extraordinary things can happen to them.
And they're doing all they can to make a difference and to make the world better.
Yes. And Bo's relationship with that grandmother that shows up on the last page, when they go to talk to her and tell her what they found. When I wrote that scene gave me goosebumps.
It was certainly beautiful. Did it have a personal connection for you as well?
Well, it did, because in the course of writing the books, that woman had become real to me. And so, yes, it is a personal connection.
Yes. Okay. Totally makes sense. That, yes, the characters become so real. Well, they were real to me as I read them. I mean, they really felt flesh and blood, like someone I could visit.
The lady on Lake Sammamish who came in from her boat shed and unlocked some of her history with Bo standing there. That scene gave me goosebumps. So as I write, if something doesn't make me have goosebumps, if something doesn't make me laugh out loud, like Bo expecting The Martian to be sort of a Disney-esque green Martians running around. It turned out he really liked that movie.
Yes.
But that movie and Ford versus Ferrari were movies that during COVID I actually enjoyed with my grandson.
And there it is, weaving your real life into the story.
See, here's the thing. I write fiction, but I'm too lazy to make up everything.
Well, why not? It works. I mean, it's a good story. So whether it has to be completely made up or if you take it and kind of revise it in some ways and make it fitting into this context that it needs to fit this storyline, why not?
Yes, the music teacher in Bisbee never had any retribution, but the music teacher here gets some.
Yes, yes. So many really contemporary, relevant topics that are here in a book that it really is fast-moving. That's the thing about books that I love, that it probably is true for many people. It's like, I need to know what's happening next. I need to keep reading, but yet not wanting it to end because we love the characters. We love being immersed in this. So isn't that really the indication of what is a good story, a good book?
Yes. Tony Hillerman once told me, literary fiction is where nothing much happens to people you don't like very much. And so I try to make lots of things happen to people I do like.
And yet it's a lot of things, but yet at a pace that it just makes sense. This is a life.
Yes.
Well, again, Den of Iniquity is such a great read. I highly, highly recommend it. I trust many people will want to pick it up. And what we want to do is let people know that you actually have a couple of book events coming up during September. So the book launches on Tuesday, September 10th, and there is an event that evening, right?
That's correct. And that will be at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park. And then on September 21st, I'll be at the Redmond Public Library. The publishers have really pulled back on the whole idea of book tours, and so I'm really disappointed by that because I actually like being out on the road talking to people. But those are the two local events, and the details of those are all on my website, jajansauthor.com.
Perfect. Well, I trust that everyone will take advantage of taking a look at the website, attending one or both of these book events, and getting to hobnob with you, hear your interpretations to answer questions that they might have the day of the event. But in the meantime, the book, of course, is available at all of our favorite book sources, correct?
Correct. At all of them.
It'll just be there. But I was going to say, too, if you don't have it, I know it's sold out. Ask for it. And the bookseller is happy to be able to get a copy and get it to you, right?
That is correct.
So we know 2 more books are ready to see the light of day fairly soon. So we should be looking forward to that, correct?
Well, the next Alley book is called Overkill, and that goes on sale April 1st. What do you do if you're Allie Reynolds and your husband's ex-wife calls because she's in jail for murdering her husband, who happened to be Bo's business partner years ago? What do you do in a case like that? Well, if you're Allie Reynolds, you don't mind your own business.
Okay. Well, we are ready for another big ride.
Okay.
Well, I hope that we get a chance to talk about that one when it comes out, J.A. Jance.
Good. Thank you, Kate. This has been fun.
It's been great fun. I so appreciate you again. Your talent is just amazing. I love your writing, and I am so appreciative that you continue to want to tell the stories.
Yep, it's in my blood.
Yay for us. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with J.A. Jance and Sunday Morning Magazine with Al Tsai with community impact for American Heart Association Puget Sound. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email. kated@warm1069.com will get to me, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of good health, good connection, and appreciating life and each other. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.